The next line is some weird dollar sign with a greater than symbol. So where does that come from? In the execute function, the first line is system.out.print dollar sign and greater than symbol, and there's a space. So that's where that came from. Okay, and that's how we know that the execution is stopped over there. And here we have string query, which means that the query which we're going to take from the user is of string type scan.nextLine. So this function, this function over here basically takes a string input from the console. So the console is the place where we're going to type, right? So if let me run this one more time, and you can see that I'm typing over here, right? So this whole thing is basically going to be a query. Okay, so that is done over here. So scan.nextLine, this is going to be the query input, next line, and it's going to be given to query, and query now holds the query, obviously, which we are going to execute. So now there are a few things which we need to do in order to process this query. So first we're going to split the query into an array of string objects using the space delimiter. Now what does this mean? This means that string with two brace brackets, opening and closing, obviously, is basically an array. Now this array is called, the name of the array is query bifurcation, and this array is equal to query, which is our string over here, and we split it with this function over here. So what does split mean, and what is this argument? So split basically takes a regular expression, and the split function basically splits the array wherever it finds a space, basically, because we passed in a space over here. What this means is that suppose we have the query show databases. So if you have the query show databases, what's it going to do is, I suppose, say show databases. So it's basically going to split this entire string into two words, show and databases, and it's going to store it into this string array over here, query bifurcation. And that's how we know what the individual words of the entire string are. So if this is an if statement over here. Now why we do this, I'll tell you why. So here we have if bifurcation, query bifurcation 0. So this is going to be the first word of this bifurcated query, and here we are ignore equals ignore case select. So basically this means that when we bifurcate the array, if the first word is going to be select or the first word is going to be show, as I've written over here, if the first word of the query is select or show, execute this the query to store the result returned in the result set. So if it is select or show, if you have studied any SQL, you will know that select and show returns a result set. Okay, and statements like insert into or create tables, they don't return anything. They just need to be executed, and the database will take care of it. But here in this case, the statements like select or show, which start with select and show, basically return a result set. So we need to take care of that. So the result set here, which we have defined earlier up there at the top of the file, is equal to statement.execute query. So here execute query is a function which takes the query, and as you know, it executes it. So you then print the result set, and the print result set is a function which we'll get to later. So once you get the result set and you execute the statement, you get whatever you need from the connection request, and then you print it. You print the result. But if the first word is not select or show, you don't need to print anything, and so you just statement.execute update. So execute update is used in order to change or make changes inside the database. The execute query is you can think about just taking information from the database and printing it on the screen. So those are the two differences between these two functions. Execute update is used to make changes in the database, or how the database is organized, and execute query basically returns the result set, and after taking the select or show thing. So that's why we need to make the difference, like the two different functions and the bifurcation between them. So yeah, I've heavily commented everything, so if you still don't understand, you can go ahead and check it out. So yeah, you can even check the documentation if you have some doubts. So right now let's go to the print result set function. So in this function, the print result set function, it looks kind of complicated, but I assure you it's not. Let me just explain what I'm going to do over here. So get the metadata. So result set metadata. As the comment says, get the metadata from the result set. Obviously, as I explained earlier, when we get something from the result set, we basically don't get the value of the column names, and we have to explicitly know them before we print them. So basically what we do over here is we try to get the names of the columns so that we know what we need to print. So as I have mentioned over here, result set metadata contains the column name data. The result set contains column data, data about the column, every row and every column basically. Get column count basically gets the number of columns in the result set, and get column name, after we pass in an integer, gets the name of the ith column. It's pretty self-explanatory. So result set equal to result set or get metadata. This is a function which returns the result set metadata, which is associated with this result set object. And then let's get to the for loop. So this first for loop is basically used solely for printing the column names. Okay, the column names. So if I is greater than 1, the first column must not have a tab. So when you print something for the first time, it doesn't need a tab. But if you're printing columns one after the other, you need to tab between them so that there is some spacing and some distinction between the printed values. So you'll get that when we run something. Okay, so string column name, the first column name is equal to result set metadata get column name I. So I basically over here moves from 1 to the number of columns. So basically I less than equal to result set get column num count. So here it doesn't it's not like an array where it starts from 0, it starts from 1. 1 is the first column, and whatever the last column get column count is, that is the last column. So if there is 5, if this whole thing returns 5, there are 5 columns. If it returns 6, there are 6 columns. So you can see the for loop going from the first column to the last column. So if I is greater than 1, the first column must not have a tab before it, obviously. So if I is 1, okay, you don't want to tab, because then the entire output will be shifted by a tab, and you don't want that. You want to put the tab after that value of I has crossed 1. So then you have string column name equal to result set dot get metadata or dot get column name. So here you pass in I, which is column 1, 2, 5 or whatever. The first, if you pass in 1, you get it the name of the first column, and it returns a string obviously, and you get the name of the first column. System.out.print column name. Then you have this line over here, system.out.println. This is basically used to give it a new line, okay, because you don't want everything to be printed on the same line again. A new line after you print all the names of the columns, and then you want it to go on the new line, to the new line. So while result set.get next, this is standard Java now. As we know what the column names are going to be, this is standard Java, okay. Java JDBC basically. So the same thing for I is equal to 1 less than result set will get column name, however the number of columns there are. If I is greater than 1, the same thing as we did above, but here we have some differences. We have string column value result set dot get string I. So basically this gets the string of I. I is basically the column which we are talking about, the first column, second column, third column. This gets the value of that particular column according to the row we are checking. This switches between rows, okay, next row, next row, next row, and this switches between columns. So I goes from 1 to n, how many number of columns there are, and that returns the value of the column value, and that is printed over here. Basically we can write this entire thing in here, but I just wanted to have some kind of distinction so that it will be easier to understand. So yeah, this whole thing prints the names of the columns, and this whole thing prints the data inside the column. So there are two while loops, right? One while loop and one for loop. So the while loop goes from column to from row to row, and the for loop goes from column to column. So just remember that when you're doing it. And that's about it. Let's run it and see what happens. Okay, use test create table star, and let's say id int, and yeah, it's created show table, and yeah, there is a star over there. So yeah, this is how you do this entire program. So yeah, it's not like a very sophisticated program, but it's a very simple application which you can make in like 10-20 minutes. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you like this video. If you did, like, share, and subscribe. And yeah, thanks for watching.